Hello and welcome back to London Cycle Routes. Today I'll be showing you how to cycle from Whitechapel in East London to Vauxhall south of the river. This ride takes about half an hour and you can do the whole thing on quiet streets and protected cycle lanes. By public transport, the same journey also takes about half an hour but requires a change of line, so cycling is a sensible way to make this trip. If you find this video useful or you just enjoy watching it, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as I try to post new videos just like it every week. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute too, you can find a link in the description below the video. Alright, let's get going. So we're starting outside Whitechapel tube station on Whitechapel Road and we're going to head westbound. The first part of this video is pretty much just a straight line towards the City of London down Whitechapel Road, benefiting from these protected cycle lanes which are part of Cycleway 2. The lanes are mostly continuous, although in the opposite direction there is a short stretch just outside Whitechapel Market which we passed, where you're forced to use the bus lane briefly, but generally you can expect the lanes to be like this all the way from Whitechapel towards Aldgate, where we break from Cycleway 2. One notable feature of this street is that there are quite a lot of bus stop bypasses on the cycle lanes. This is where the cycle lane goes behind the bus stop and people accessing the stop have to cross the cycle lane to get to a little island where they board the bus from. You can see there's one just up ahead here. It's a good design as it means you don't have to overtake buses which are stopped at the stop by swinging out into the road, which can be quite scary, but it's important to use the bus stops properly when you're on your bike. That means giving way to people using the little zebra crossing to get to the island, and also keeping an eye out for people making last minute dashes across your path for the bus, which does happen quite frequently. This stretch of road approaching Aldgate can get quite hectic, so just take it slow and pay attention to the traffic lights. Sometimes there are separate phases for bikes and separate phases for general traffic, so make sure that you are following the lights for bikes when there are separate signals, and do watch out for kamikaze pedestrians as well. We're leaving Cycleway 2 in a second and we want to turn left to do it, and fortunately there's a really easy way if you know how. Look at the ground here and you'll see this bike symbol with an arrow pointing us onto the pavement here. This is actually shared space and you're supposed to go between the two dropped curbs and completely cut the corner to join Mansell Street. Trust me, that is genuinely what you're meant to do there. It seems almost like cheating, but it's pretty easy and it puts you onto this lightly segregated cycle lane which connects us from Cycleway 2 towards Cycleway 3 at Tower Hill, which is the next main route that we're going to be joining. If you're doing this route in the opposite direction and you need to make a right turn onto Whitechapel High Street, it works a little bit differently. The traffic lights actually let you in front of all the other traffic, which gives you a head start to make the right turn in the normal way and join the cycle lane on the other side of the street. I've shown how it's done in videos including my Westminster to Stratford video published back in June this year, so do check that out if you need specific help on how to do it. Talking of right turns, we want to turn onto Shorter Street here, and the way we do that is in two stages. You can see that I waited for a green light, proceeded to the protective island, and then I waited for a green light again to cross the road before I proceeded onto Shorter Street. That's actually a really common way of making a right turn in countries like Denmark, where it's common on cycle lanes. It's increasingly used in London, but we're a little bit inconsistent about how we apply it. I think it works pretty well there, although I do prefer the kind of Dutch style fully protected junctions where those are available, as they're just a lot more intuitive to work out. One downside of this route is that there are frankly too many traffic lights on it, so progress can be a little bit slow. Pedestrian crossings are really important and good, but there are often sections, particularly coming up in a minute on Upper Thames Street and Lower Thames Street, where you really frequently find yourself waiting at empty crossings with nobody using it. It would make sense to have these crossings over cycle tracks turned into zebra crossings, I think, so that bikes can proceed if there's nobody coming, and then just have the bit of the main carriageway signalised. Frankly, a lot of people are just going to ignore a red light over a cycle track if the crossing is empty and nobody's using it, so it kind of makes sense to formalise that for people who are following the rules. And if you create a zebra, then you actually give people walking priority more of the time as well, in fact all of the time. I think it is a design change worth thinking about, particularly for this part of the route, but also for Cycleway 6 around Blackfriars Bridge where there's a similar issue. Now, do you see that big generic looking office block ahead of us that we're just passing under in a moment? That's actually Cannon Street Station, the City of London terminus for the South Eastern Main Line. It's an interesting place with a lot of history. It was actually built on top of the medieval base of the Hanseatic League, Baltic Trading Confederation, the Steel Yard. And talking of building on top of things, it is actually a notable example of what we call oversight development, that is building on top of railway stations. And it's probably also, frankly, a good example of why people are sceptical of that kind of building. It's been done to Cannon Street, but also Charing Cross and Fenchurch Street, which both have office blocks on top, and the effects in all of those haven't really been great. The main issue is that it makes them all quite dingy with little natural light and low ceilings. Interestingly, there are some plans in development to build on top of nearby Liverpool Street Station, but at least in the latest version of those plans, to me it does look like they've really learned some lessons from places like Cannon Street, and there's an emphasis on sort of high voltage ceilings, letting in natural light, that kind of thing. So yeah, perhaps that's a reaction to those earlier projects, and I guess we'll see if it's any good if and when those are built. Now, to get to Vauxhall today, we're going to head straight along the Victoria Embankment and cross the river at Westminster, but you actually have a few options to make this journey, which is always a nice thing to have, and also an increasingly common thing to have in London where new infrastructure is being built all the time. One alternative is coming up just here. As we emerge from the underpass, you could make a sharp right here and double back on ourselves up this hairpin and cross Blackfriars Bridge over the River Thames, and then head south down Cycleway 6 on Blackfriars Road before turning right into the cut, which is low traffic, and you continue down the cut and join Cycleway 5, which we'll be meeting later in this video. Now, that might be a better route than what we're doing today. The main downside really is that it requires you to double back on yourself slightly as you join Blackfriars Bridge, but in a lot of respects it's actually better, and there are some issues coming up with this route later which I'll point out, which it frankly might be sensible to avoid by taking that alternative route. But there are also big positives to going this way. Frankly, whatever the weather, and the weather clearly wasn't great the day I filmed this video, I love cycling down the Thames. It's just a cool spot and the view is iconic. That's a non-transport benefit, but yeah, it's also pretty fast going along the embankment as there are no side roads given we're following a river, so few traffic lights, and when there are few pedestrians triggering the crossings for the same reason. So even though it looks like quite a long way on a map, you can always be pretty assured that you're going to make snappy progress down here and you're going to go about as fast as you can pedal. What about those downsides? Well, some people have told me that they avoid the embankment at rush hour, particularly because it gets so busy with bikes down here. If you watch my recent video of people cycling during the tube strike, where all the cycle routes were massively over capacity, that was an extreme example, but yeah, even on a normal weekday in the morning and evening rush hours, it's a lot of people, some moving quite fast. Personally, I love cycling with lots of other people, but I can sort of see why you might not want to, or you might prefer to take a slightly less busy route. That isn't inevitable, by the way, and can be fixed easily by creating more parallel cycle routes, high quality routes on streets like the Strand and Whitehall, which run parallel to here, which I think really needs to happen. It's definitely time to start relieving the embankment because it does get a little bit silly at rush hour. Personally, I don't think that busyness is a reason not to use the embankment, but I would totally understand why somebody didn't want to use Westminster Bridge, which is coming up in a second. We're going to turn onto it left, and you'll immediately see what the problem is. There is basically a fatal design flaw here, which means that everyone who wants to photograph Big Ben walks in the cycle lane, and you pretty much have to constantly ring your bell when you walk down here. You have to go slowly and carefully to make sure that nobody's going to step in front of you, and frankly most people on these pavements, and particularly standing on the bollards, are pretty oblivious. There's also the problem of the illegal ice cream vans, which encourage people, including children, to step out into the cycle track. So yeah, if you do choose to go this way, you just need to be very cautious. I know that some people do prefer to use the bus lane, but you still run into an issue there because the illegal ice cream vans are still parked in the bus lane. For those that don't know about the ice cream vans, they are basically run without a license. They sit there on the double red lines. They get parking tickets every day, but they just consider it a cost of doing business, and it is really, really dangerous what they're doing there. For whatever reason, the police and the council don't feel able to stop them, even though it's taking place right in front of Parliament every single day. Really, the pavements on Westminster Bridge need to be like 2 to 3 times as wide as they currently are, and the bridge should probably be made buses, or at least buses and taxis only, in order to facilitate that. Now, a cool fact about this area we're in now is that it was pretty much the site of the world's first ever circus. Centaur Street is a reference to that. Astley's Circus, as it was called, had a heavy emphasis on equestrian tricks, and centaurs, a half-man, half-horse creature, are a reference to that. Hercules Road, which we're on now, is also, believe it or not, a reference to that too, as one of Astley's establishments was called Hercules Hall. For such an unassuming street, there's actually a really high density of historic interest here. William Blake, the poet, also lived on Hercules Road at one time, and there is a blue plaque where his house once stood. It was also a filming location for the 1949 film Passport to Pimlico. And I'm not sure whether it's a coincidence, but it's also now the home of Pimlico plumbers. We're currently following a signed cycle route called Cycleway 5, and it goes down some pretty quiet streets. You can see it says C5 on the ground, and there are some green and blue signs on lampposts at various points pointing you in the right direction. These streets are reasonably quiet, but they're going to get even quieter pretty soon. On the 29th of November, so that's about a week after publication of this video, the Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens Healthy Neighbourhood is going to go in, and this street, Vauxhall Walk, will have all its through traffic removed, as well as some other streets in the area. Then next year you can expect the Walnut Tree Walk Healthy Neighbourhood to go in, and that'll also remove through traffic from Sale Street, Newport Street, and those other parts of Cycleway 5 that we just came down. As you can see though, it is already pretty quiet down here. And on top of that, I've always loved what a great job the council has done with this planting here, which just makes the street feel so lush and green as you go past the pub and enter the park. Do be careful and courteous as you cycle on the paths in this park, as they are shared with pedestrians, and while they're not super narrow, it can get a little bit busy at points as it's a popular walking and cycle route. If you don't want to share this path, then you can always use Godding Street or Goading Street, which runs parallel on our right and joins us at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, which is this pub just ahead here. But I personally find no problem going through the park as it is. We're actually going to end the video right here, just in front of Vauxhall Station and the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. Thanks very much for watching this video. I would be fascinated to hear people's views on this route, particularly whether or not you should go this way, down the embankment and over Westminster Bridge, or whether it's better to cross at Blackfriars Bridge and then go through Waterloo and the Cut and join Cycleway 5 from there. To be quite honest, I think I'd probably go the latter way. Westminster Bridge has got so bad and is of such poor quality that, honestly, you're probably better off with that hairpin and going up Blackfriars Road. There's probably not much in it though, as the embankment cycleway is really good, so it kind of makes up for it. Maybe it depends what time of day you're doing the journey. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Please do leave a like if you enjoyed the video or the commentary. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button because I do post new videos like this every week, usually on Sundays. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank once again the brilliant supporters of this channel on Patreon. It wouldn't be able to happen without you, certainly not every week. And if anyone else is interested in contributing and supporting the channel, then you can find a link in the description below the video. I'll see you all again next time. Goodbye.